Good. Hey, hey, 1, 2, check.
There's a new, very suspicious-looking volume button here on the podium. Should I play with it? Should I play with it? The AV guys are telling me not to play with it, so I don't know. It's so shiny, and it's right there. I could just turn it. We're starting. It's that time, I think. Oh, we have like 30 seconds. I'll vamp. No, okay. I don't know. I can't vamp without a guitar. No, air guitar is only lead guitar, and vamping is something you do with the rhythm guitar. So you can't air vamp. I don't know. I don't make the rules. All right. All right, now it is 9 o'clock, and that means that it is time for day 3 and the last of Code4Lib to start. Yay! All right, you ready? Good morning, I am Dre, and I will be your MC for the final stretch of Code4Lib 2026. You are welcome to drop your I'm Dre still. I don't know how I ended up here again. I guess people didn't want to sign up for MCing, and so I got suckered into doing it again. And yes, it is the last little bit of Code4Lib 2026. We have some pleasantries to get through, and then we'll have our closing keynote. Let's see. Item the first, you are welcome to drop off your lanyards at the registration desk on your way out, and we will reuse them in future years. The name badge holders too, if you want, I guess, but we don't want your name badges. Keep it as a memento or put it in the recycling bin because, like, we can't reuse it because it got your name on it. You know what I'm saying. Lightning talks for today are already full. We do still have space for breakout sessions. You can sign up on the ginormous post-it note on the wall by the registration desk. Display this page and scroll to the appropriate section. Okay, can we switch over to the what's it? There we go. Look at that. Okay, so today, Wednesday morning until 11, we've got Eric Pettiplace and Bobby Fox, and I see Bobby in the spot. I do not see Eric there yet. I'm sure he'll show up. Later today, we will have Chad, Bibliotechie Nelson, and Anne-Marie. I think Anne-Marie is in her usual spot back there, and Chad is somewhere. But presumably they will be in the magic spots when the time comes. Okay, let's see. We did that. Zebra striped lanyards. Don't forget the zebra striped lanyards. If you are in need of a CSV and you are not in a place where you can easily find the dedicated CSV seats, you can flag down anyone with a striped lanyard, and that is also okay. Okay. Online community support volunteer is on here somewhere. Sorry for the motion sickness. All right. So our on-site or our online community support volunteer is Sharon Clapp, Sclap, and until 11, and then Mike Jarlow. Here we have Mike with his hair. MJ Jarlow from 11 to 12:45. All right, so a note for your planning. In order to help you make it through the end of the sessions, which conclude at 12:45 today, light snacks will be provided at 10:45 during the break. So don't forget your snacks. Got to stay fueled up for all of the coding and libbing that is happening today on the last day of Code4Lib. For today's keynote, please use Slack for your questions. It is a remote keynote, our only remote presentation of the day today, so that's cool. Not that we don't, for me it's more complicated. Anyway, so because it is a remote presentation, use Slack for your questions. Begin a question for the speaker with a capital Q, or even better, the entire word question in capital letters. That'll make it easier for the people doing the what's-its to find it on Slack when the time comes. Yes, and we are now 10 minutes ahead of time. I don't know how our keynote's doing. Can we go in early, Esme, or do I need to vamp some more? Okay, I want to, did we find out, hold on a second. It's true. There is a pie line. All right, so the audience has wisely pointed out that there might be people waiting for pie at Little Susie's. So we should wait a little bit longer, I think, to get started. I don't know what I'm going to do I could give an impromptu lightning talk on something, but I don't have any slides. What's that? Thunder Duck? Thunder Talk, okay. Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. This is why I don't do stand-up comedy. I can't, I cannot stand up here and act like an idiot, but I can't, do clever, idiotic things on demand. So I could do improv. All right, I need a place and an object. All right, Eiffel Tower. All right, I am the Eiffel Tower librarian. I don't know. How's everyone's conference going? Going well so far? Yeah. It's pretty good. Philly, it's a good town, good food town. As people had good food. How many Little Susie's pies has everyone eaten? 3. Yeah. I've had 3. I had 2 pork rolls with cheese. Those were very good. And what was the other one? Oh, the mushroom Swiss. I like the savories. I've lost my taste for sweets in my elder, middle-aged times, which is I'm okay with it. But, you know. Also, I'm going to talk about my tablet. I love my little tablet. It's e-ink. It's color. It has a backlight or a front light, and it has a pen. I like a tablet with a pen. It's got incredible handwriting recognition. I think I did this 2 years ago when I had this tablet. Just go on about how cool it was. It's still cool, even 2 years old, but there's a new version of it. This is the Onyx Books Note Air 4C. They're up to the Note Air 5C now. It is Google Play certified, so you have access to the full gamut of Android whatsits that are on the Google Play Store. This one is Android 11, though. I think the newer one is Android 12, so it's a little bit more compatible. This one, I think, actually lost its Play certification, but the current one, I think, is a little better. Anyway, is it really, have only 9:07? Come on. Okay, what else? Give me a play, no. I'm going to give it 3 more minutes, and then we're going to go. And people who are not here yet, they deserve to miss the opening 5 minutes of the thing. Let me see if there's other notes that I should read. Yes, we already talked about if you're checking out today, you should not have your stuff in here. And it looks like mostly people have not put their stuff in here, so that's good. And I've heard rumors that the hotel is pretty decent about doing late checkout. So if you have not checked out yet and you're thinking of like running out in a panic to do a checkout during the break, you might run out in a panic and be like, can I have a late checkout? And that might make your life slightly easier. Though I guess if you're already planning to check out of the break, then maybe you're fine. Yeah. I have 6 minutes and 22 seconds left to vamp. But we're just going to get going. It is 8:08. That's good enough. No, it's 9:08. This computer's in the wrong time zone. Yeah, okay. Last thing. I think the AV crew said that there were 7 Lightning Talk slide sets for the Lightning Talks that are later this morning. There are 10 Lightning Talks this morning. I do not know whether all of the Lightning Talks actually have slides, but if I was getting a strange hand signal from Carrie, and zero. Okay, Carrie has 0 slides. If you have not, the point being, if you have not done your slides for the Lightning Talks, you should do the slides for the Lightning Talks. If your Lightning Talk does not have slides, you may disregard this message. Okay. All right, I'm just going to make the thing happen, and then it's going to be 9:10, and then the people in the hall will hear the booming voice of the Zoom happening, and they will know. It will be like a clarion call to get people into the hall. Okay. Let me read the thing. I think I got the name pronunciation right. All right, our closing keynote. Let me pull up the Zoom, and we'll get the Zoom going, and then that way our keynotist can hear the lovely bio that we have for him, which probably came directly from our keynotist. But, you know, there's a thing to be done. I will stay co-host. I will join with computer audio. I'm going to maximize this. All right, can we do a quick sound check before I start blabbing?
Test.
Oh, there we go. Okay, here goes. All right. I hope I get this right. Dr. J. Nathan Matthias is a computer. Did I get it right? Matthias? Yeah, all right.
Yes.
Is a computer scientist and social scientist who organizes citizen behavioral science for a safer, fairer, more understanding internet. A Guatemalan American, Nathan is founder of Citizens and Technology Lab, and an assistant professor in the Cornell University Department of Communication. Matthias has worked with online communities around the world to test effective ways for people to come together to create, maintain, and protect public goods online. He also studies the science of freedom of expression and diversity in knowledge-making endeavors. His work in design has received awards from Fast Company, and his research and advocacy have received awards from the Association for Computing Machinery and the Mozilla Foundation. Matthias has published scholarship in journals including Nature, Science, and PNAS, which is I forget what that stands for, PNAS. His journalism has been published in The Atlantic, The Guardian, Adventure Cyclist Magazine, and many others. All right, that's what we got, and take it away, Dr. Matthias.
Hello, everyone. It's a real honor to have a chance to talk to you for many reasons. I'm joining you here from Ithaca, New York. And it's been wonderful to get a glimpse into your community, to watch live streams, and to have a sense of your collective passion for making things, thinking in thoughtful ways about technology and ethics, and recognizing the role that people play and values play in the creation of technology. I always love being in a room of people who I don't have to explain that technology has a social and community and public dimension. And I can tell you're a crowd that really cares about those things. I also just want to say, as a Guatemalan American, I really appreciate your community's commitment to creating an inclusive world of knowledge, something that I know you've borne some burdens and costs for, and it means a lot to me that you've taken up that effort. So I want to start out today, once I successfully, hopefully successfully share my screen, to talk about the idea of cultivating and coding knowledge in the era of agnotology. And I promise this will not be a buzzword-filled conversation, and I will explain what I mean by agnotology. But what I actually want to start with is this image of something called the Madrid Codex, which is very important to my own life and culture. This is one of the very few remaining books, printed paper books, in Mayan language. It's, this one is at a museum in Madrid. And like all books, but especially this one, it wasn't a static document. It was a resource for organizing community, coordinating life, and carrying out rituals among the people who shared the same language or similar languages to my own Mam indigenous ancestors. And the story of this book is not just a social one, because it's an extraordinary survivor of a remarkable moment in the history of knowledge. This is a monastery at a place in the Yucatan called Mani. And in the 16th century, there was an extraordinary occurrence organized by a priest, Diego de Landa. When de Landa arrived in the Americas, he was committed to and passionately interested in learning about Mayan culture and language. And in fact, he kept a number of records about the Mayan written language that have turned out to be profoundly valuable in later generations. But also in 1562, the priests at Mani discovered that there were people practicing indigenous culture and religion without their permission. And so they actually held a burning where they organized people to bring the books that they had from Mayan culture and burn them. And so when we go back and we look at this codex, which is available in a Spanish archive, one of the only reasons we have it is that it was taken from Mexico, modern-day Mexico, before the burning. That people who had loved knowledge and built relationships with people as colonizers ended up being the destroyers of our culture. And it wasn't until centuries later that Mayan communities and archaeologists and linguists managed to piece together our understanding of these written records. So when we think about the infrastructures that we use to create and foster knowledge, we have to recognize that the monastery, the book, isn't purely a tool for preserving. They can also be tools for creating ignorance. And that's something that I want to come back to in today's discussion. And I draw substantively from the work of the historian Robert Proctor, because this isn't just a problem from the 16th century. As Proctor has observed in his research on the role of corporations and governments in the fight to understand the causes of cancer, as much as we can make knowledge, we can also make ignorance. And as Proctor observes, you can create infrastructures, you can create institutions that establish meta-knowledge regimes that can be used to attack the whole idea of science, attack the whole idea of knowledge. It's not just the destruction of things, it can be alternatives that try to undermine knowledge. So today, I'm going to be talking about both sides of that coin and what we can do at a time when it feels like that agnotology is even more powerful than it has been before. Before I go there, I should say a little bit more about myself. I really appreciate the lovely introduction, but it's important to know that when I show up at a conversation, I do not show up alone. I lead the Citizens and Technology Lab, where we do citizen science for our digital environments. You'll hear more stories in my talk, but a decade ago, actually more than a decade ago, I and my collaborators realized that if we wanted to create knowledge that would matter in people's lives about our digital environments, about our online safety, about our capacity to understand and connect to each other, we would need to learn some things from the citizen science movement, which has had decades of challenges engaging with governments and corporations and other forces that don't always want people to know things. They don't always want people to organize in ways that make knowledge consequential for the common good. And so we've tried to adopt lessons from the citizen science movement for the study of our digital environments, our social media, our knowledge systems, and other technologies that are part of our daily lives. And so everything I'll share here is the product of both the amazing contributions of the staff at the lab, the students at the lab, and really the thousands of people who we've been privileged to work together with over the years. And today I want to walk through three themes. I want to think about how we cultivate knowledge through human cooperation. I want to think about the issue and talk about the issue of defending people and communities from threats. And then this question that I'm sure we're all asking about how we make sense of artificial intelligence and its role in society. So it's probably no surprise to you that a good place to start would be Wikipedia. This is a visualization of something called Wiki Galaxy by Owen Cormack, which illustrates how tens of millions of volunteers have contributed to a range of projects across the Wikimedia ecosystem designed to share and enjoy the sum of human knowledge, which economists estimate contributes $42 billion to the US economy each year, but which we all know means even more when someone reconnects to their culture or learns something that helps improve their health or expands their curiosity. And one of the interesting challenges faced by Wikipedia is that as more people have contributed, and as Wikipedia has grown, it has also become an attractive target for manipulation and other kinds of disinformation. As the scholar Mako Hill has observed, the more valuable a shared resource becomes, the more attractive a target it is for people who wish to manipulate it and exploit it. And these efforts create the need for protections, which in the case of Wikipedia are a combination of human effort and artificial intelligence. One of the challenges they face is that soon after introducing automated moderation, Wikipedia participation went from a massive growth curve into a slow decline. In a paper that researchers published a few years later, led by Aaron Halfaker and others, analysts noticed that this dramatic change coincided with the use of AI moderation systems that vigorously remove low-quality edits from the site. It's an essential function to keep Wikipedia high quality, but also it can have these negative effects on people's participation, because if you're a newcomer, you don't yet know how to contribute, you make a contribution that may not be exactly what Wikipedians are looking for, and the result is that you are dissuaded or you feel discouraged about participating. So what can we do about this? Several years ago, our lab met with a group of community leaders across multiple language Wikipedias to imagine interventions that could slow this decline. And as we talked about practical things, we also talked about the science of cooperation and what keeps people contributing to something. Researchers often talk about three structures that bind people together in cooperation. One is this idea of direct reciprocity and obligation, where I give something to you, you feel like you need to give something back to me, and the cycle continues. Another is this idea of indirect reciprocity, right? Where you contribute to a public good, you gain some reputation from that, and even if you don't get directly back from that, the reputation you gain leads to other people contributing back to you in some way. And this is a powerful tool for fostering participation and contributions to public goods. And Wikipedia already has a bunch of measures for rewarding and celebrating contributors, including this Barnstar program, which has been around for, over 20 years at this point. We, as researchers, were interested in this third kind of cooperation, what's called upstream reciprocity, where you contribute to something in a pay-it-forward model. Right? You don't necessarily expect anything in return beyond what everyone gets from general knowledge on Wikipedia, but you feel a sense that it's valuable to others, and it increases your sense of self-efficacy and the value that others offer to the work that you do. And Wikipedia's already had created a system that supports this kind of appreciation. They had a system for private gratitude. If you may have seen this yourself, if you've ever looked at the revision history for a Wikipedia article, you'll see this little thanks button next to the name of the person who contributed given edits. And this was a really popular feature. In fact, by the time we started our research, Wikipedians were sending nearly 70,000 private messages of thanks each month. And when you send the message, that person gets a note back saying, we're thanking you for this contribution. So we worked with the community to ask the question, what is the actual effect of this? Is this worthwhile? Is this making a difference in people's lives and in Wikipedia? And we had this challenge in that we needed to identify thanks that could be thankable, or like contributions that could be thankable, that are high enough quality that a Wikipedian would reasonably want to say thank you. So we worked with editors to use some machine learning tools to identify thank-worthy contributions to Wikipedia among newcomers and more experienced contributors alike. And so we were curious about the effect on people's contributions over time, as well as the rate at which people then go on to send thanks. We were curious if this might have a contagious effect on a culture of gratitude. And I won't go in here. If you want to ask in the Q&A, we can talk about the infrastructure we created. But we ended up organizing hundreds of volunteers to thank over 15,000 newcomer and experienced Wikipedians over the course of a couple of years. And then we measured how long people contributed to contribute. We measured the time they contributed, and also the rate of thanks they sent out in the period of 42 days after receiving the intervention. To give you a sense of what we found, and these are in-progress results, we're finishing up the paper in the next week, actually, we found that being assigned to receive thanks caused someone to send 61% more thanks to other people over the next 6 weeks, often to someone they'd not interacted with before. So we found this really beautiful effect where receiving gratitude from others, even privately, caused people to go on to thank others in large numbers on the site. We also found that being assigned to receive thanks did increase the retention of contributors over time, and also that it increased the time that people contributed to Wikipedia. There's all sorts of scientific things we're interested about the psychology of gratitude. But for Wikipedians, we found that this private gratitude system does sustain upstream reciprocity. It spreads thanks and it increases contributions. I hope this gives you an illustration of the kind of participatory science that my lab has tended to do, where we talk to people, we find out the problems that they're wrestling with, we identify interventions, and then we build software that can help them find out if the things they care about are helping and contributing to flourishing knowledge communities online. And over the years, we've worked with Wikipedians around the world on projects to broaden and recruit African contributors to Wikipedia, to test different kinds of automated mentor matching, which didn't work, and it was really helpful to know that it didn't work, as well as studying things like long-time burnout among contributors to Wikipedia. But through this work, there's a technology we took for granted that's been a part of knowledge communities since the very first library, and it's the idea of the door. For millennia, knowledge institutions could assume that if they held information, this information would bring people in who need it and who might join the community of people who create, maintain, and pass on knowledge to the next generation. That's how my local library worked growing up. It's how my university works. It's how Wikipedia works. But that has changed. I know libraries have experienced your own versions of this, but Wikipedia is experiencing a version of this as well. I just came back from Frankfurt, where I was at the Wikimedia Futures Lab, and we were shown this quite concerning chart that shows globally a decline in views and contributions on Wikipedia across the board over the last few years. And one of the main sources of the decline is generative AI. As people continue to turn to generative AI and not to institutions that are comprised of other people, they are getting answers which may or may not be accurate. And they're also not learning about opportunities to contribute the very knowledge that systems like Wikipedia rely on. And this is a very serious challenge that the Wikimedia community is facing globally. And it's this challenge of agnotology, right? Maybe, I wouldn't presume to speak to whether AI creators want to create a situation where they are consuming vast resources from all of us and all of our infrastructures while blocking the door to the very community and people that we rely on to make our systems and institutions of knowledge work. But that's one of the things that's happening. And so we have to think about how ignorance, in the words of Robert Proctor, is being created through the erosion of these important social institutions. One of the things I'm really excited about is that the gathering we had in Frankfurt was an opportunity for Wikipedians from all over the world to gather and imagine things we could do to address this issue at all levels of how knowledge creation on Wikipedia works. And so if you're curious to hear what Wikipedians are thinking about, you can go to the Wikimedia Futures Lab site and see all of the ideas that the community is testing and imagining in order to address this issue. And as researchers, our lab get very excited about what we can do to support communities to find out what will work, what doesn't, so that communities can effectively protect and grow knowledge resources like Wikipedia, perhaps in experiments like the one I just shared. So it would be wonderful to live in a world where the main issue was that people are busy or there are different knowledge infrastructures crowding out people's attention. And all we need to do is find people, organize them, connect them, and create knowledge. But that's not, unfortunately, the case. I know you're in Philadelphia, so I thought it would be apt to share a quote from Thomas Jefferson, who did some writing in Philadelphia that had a substantial role in the history of this country. Jefferson was a staunch advocate of the idea of liberty of conscience and intellectual freedom. And in a famous letter to Dr. Benjamin Rush in 1800 about the question of whether the United States should have an established religion, he wrote, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." Sometimes we need to protect our institutions and we need to protect people and knowledge from threats. And that's work that Cat Lab has also done over the years. Early on, it became clear to me in my own research as a PhD student that as much as inclusion mattered, we also had to account for all of the people and forces and institutions that try to prevent people from knowing things and expressing themselves. Early on, I got an opportunity to study this in a remarkable collaboration with a group of scholars and a nonprofit called Women Action in the Media to crowdsource information about threats of harassment that women face online. The year was 2014. It was during this movement called Gamergate that was organizing large-scale coordinated harassment, especially towards prominent women online. And companies weren't doing very much to protect people from those threats. And in fact, they were holding on to evidence about those threats in a way that made it hard for us more broadly as society to understand the scope of the problem. So I worked with a group called Women Action in the Media to collect reports of harassment from people who are facing it, forward them onto Twitter, record information about those threats, and also record how the company responded. And I won't bore you with all of the details of the infrastructure and how we put it together, but using this, we were able to get visibility into the scope and scale of harassment that people faced online in a way that was not possible before, despite eventually efforts by the company to undermine the credibility of the work that we had done. But it wasn't enough for me to just stop at documenting the problem. As an experimentalist, I care about actually doing work that protects people and reliably and visibly does so. So I ended up working with a group on Reddit called R Science. At the time, they were hosting very large Q&As with prominent scientists, people like Stephen Hawking. And unfortunately, even for someone as eminent and respected as Hawking, when he posted a Q&A with people, he received all sorts of cruel and hateful comments that mocked his illness and his personal life. And unfortunately, things like this are tremendously common online. So what could you do about something like this? The comment isn't illegal. Freedom of expression protects a cruel joke like this. It doesn't violate the policies of the company. And so the site's professional staff were unlikely to do anything about it. Other readers could vote on the comment or make it less prominent. The comment also violates the policy of the community where it was posted. And in fact, this one was removed by volunteer moderators at this online community, R Science, that at the time hosted over 13.5 million subscribers. It's much, much larger today. The key number here, though, is that there are over 1,200 volunteers who work together to manage and maintain this community. And so they were curious to know, can norms against harassment change behavior, actually prevent harassment, and grow participation online? Because people often think about content moderation as something that reduces people's expression. They were curious to know if they had clear policies, would people feel more free to post? And so we created a rules announcement that made it clear that certain kinds of things would be removed if they violated the community's policies and that they had the capacity to do so. And then we created an infrastructure that would collect data in real time from the community, post these warnings and announcements to the community, and observe what happened over time while also managing ethics. I'm astonished to report that 11 years after I created this infrastructure, it is still being used by Reddit communities to test ideas for improving their online spaces. It's wild that it still works, and it's been wonderful to see that happen. So I won't go through all the details of the study, but we did indeed find that posting the rules increased the chance of rule compliance by over 8 percentage points. So it prevented some of this kind of cruelty and harassment. And also it increased newcomer participation by 70% on average, where having clear policies against harassment actually freed more people to speak. And the beautiful thing is that after publishing this result, we made it clear to communities that they could replicate these findings. They could do their own experiments. And as a result, many have over the years. That particular study has been replicated over 6 times by many communities. And we've gone on to use this infrastructure to do a wider range of research aimed at protecting people online. Now, I would love to live in a world where we could protect people through incremental change grounded in design and community action, evaluated by experiments. As a scientist, I love that idea. But unfortunately, the more effective research like this has become, the more threats it has attracted. Here are 2 examples. In 2021, a group of researchers at NYU were threatened by Meta and Facebook for doing research on disinformation and actually auditing the company's transparency data that they provided to Congress on a number of sensitive issues. And we've also seen people like Elon Musk and X sue researchers for documenting problems of online hate. So where we come back to agnotology, and this is actually the kind of case that Robert Proctor was writing about when he was writing about the tobacco industry and its efforts to prevent people from believing that smoking would cause cancer. When research upsets powerful people, they'll muddy the waters, they'll seek to control research, they'll threaten researchers. And so in addition to all of our science, I have linked arms with a group of others to develop the Coalition for Independent Technology Research. We set out to defend others and support others through our science, and we realize that scientists also need to be defended. And so the coalition is now a group of over 500 journalists, civil society researchers, academics who work together to advance, defend, and sustain the right to ethically study the impact of technology on society, led by our wonderful executive director, Brandy Gerkink. And so we organize community of practice, we offer mutual aid and support, but we also engage legally. For example, in 2024, we polled our members to understand how they were affected by these legal threats that researchers had faced for doing their research, and published and filed an amicus brief in X's lawsuit against researchers studying online hate. As Brandy wrote, allowing X's suit to proceed would open the floodgates for tech companies to stall research, suppress unfavorable findings, ultimately chilling independent non-commercial research that's squarely in the public interest. And I'm happy to say that when the federal judge dismissed this case, they actually cited the research that we'd done about the chilling effect on our own members. So this is one case where organizing in mutual aid and self-defense and engaging in the legal system, not just science, made a big difference for protecting not just that one team, but all of us. And that's one area that my lab is getting more into in the coming years, asking what kinds of evidence can we marshal in order to better support courts to make informed decisions on civil liberties cases. We've been exploring that in a number of ways. We've done work on looking at automated copyright enforcement and its effect on freedom of expression. In fact, we had some very good news this week, and we'll have a new paper coming out very shortly, estimating the effect of DMCA and copyright enforcement on freedom of expression in the US. We've done qualitative research to understand how researchers navigate the risks of publication and visibility. And we've been doing work with our colleagues at the Knight First Amendment Institute on how scientific evidence can reliably inform court cases related to civil liberties. And one of the things that we've had to wrestle with in that work is that often we think of privacy and like engineering privacy into our systems as an important protection for people. But when courts ask us to put forward evidence that people have been chilled or had their rights threatened in a consequential way, we also need data about the impact in people's lives. And so one of the big questions I've been wrestling with that I imagine you as coders and people adjacent to software in libraries must surely be wrestling with now is how to balance privacy as a protection for people with the fact that sometimes when you need to go to court, you need data that might require you to ask courageous people to share information that might otherwise be quite sensitive in hopes that if you can win in the courts, you can secure broader protections for others. So that's a very practical engineering and privacy question that we've been wrestling with here at our lab. So the last area I want to briefly touch on is this question about the role of artificial intelligence in so many of our arenas. I'm sure you're facing all sorts of pressure and also very excited about AI in certain areas. And one of the risks of AI is that it takes people out of the equation, right? That we turn to an AI system rather than to people. And that doesn't have to be the case. And in particular, one of the areas that I and my collaborators have focused on is the question of how can people be involved in setting the agenda and actually doing evaluation of AI systems. And together with my colleague, Megan Price, at the Human Rights Data Analysis Group, we just published an extensive review article that speaks to all of the people who only care about the science and could take or leave the communities from the equation, why they should care about including the public in the evaluation of AI if they care about the quality of the science that results. And I should note that my collaborator, Megan, is the executive director of the Human Rights Data Analysis Group, which is a group that I am a big fan of and have been for many years. HRDAG does high-stakes data analysis in matters of justice worldwide, from studies of discrimination in public services to genocide trials. And as a Guatemalan American of Hmong indigenous heritage, I deeply appreciate their work in the 1990s on the Guatemalan Civil War and genocide that inspired me to see statistics as more than just a conversation among scholars, but something that can make a real difference in the world. And so Megan and I set out to ask this question: what, if anything, can public involvement add to the science of AI? And I'm going to run through this fairly quickly so you get a sense of the breadth of what we've been thinking on, but happy to follow up in questions. So the first thing that we unpacked in the article were a set of technical, social, and political challenges in the evaluation of AI systems. So for example, one of the things we point out is that when evaluating the reliability of system, that's embedded in multiple layers of social and psychological factors like organizational implementation, all things that you know as librarians, but which sometimes it takes some time to remind computer scientists about. And we also point out this agnotology problem, right? That ignorance about the reliability or outcomes of a system is in the self-interest of many parties. We also do some work to summarize different models of participation in AI research. There's the contributory model where people donate data that goes into training, like our Wikipedia collaborators did when training models to identify positive contributions. There's a co-created approach where evaluators are in conversation in community with participants and the public to set the agenda for that work. And there's also a participatory governance model where people are in the driver's seat of shaping where AI is used and when it's not used. We also summarize some of the concerns that scientists have, like, is it going to be unreliable if you're relying on measurements from the public? Is it more expensive? Like, do you get better knowledge from it? Do you find out what you need to know? And we answer all of those questions through the literature that's out there. We also took some time to identify some areas where the science of AI evaluation actually benefits from public involvement. And I want to briefly mention 3 examples. One is this extraordinary project that HRDAG did with the Invisible Institute, where they analyzed data from police interactions. And they actually trained classifiers to analyze these interactions. And they found that if you look at the data systems as they were taxonomized by the police in the context they were working, they tended to hide evidence of sexual violation. The categories used didn't make it clear at all that that was an important part of what someone had experienced. And when they worked with communities to relabel some of the data, they were able to find very serious evidence of potential police misconduct in this one jurisdiction because they were involving the public in the measurement and defining the measurement process. There's another story from HRDAG and the ACLU from a project called the Allegheny Family Screening Tool, which was used to identify people who might be at higher risk of needing intervention from Child Protective Services. And they found that while the algorithm was theoretically fair, the metrics were mismatched with the user interface and the organizational processes that were used. And they were able to discover this because affected families who were flagged by the system complained. They reached out to the ACLU, and they ultimately collaborated with HRDAG to analyze data from the system. So they were able to observe very serious inequality and racial discrimination in the system because they worked with affected communities. And I'll share an example from my work. I did a project where I collaborated with hundreds of communities that were involved in a strike against the Reddit platform. And we worked together to interpret the data that we collected, where we went back and forth and did this participatory process of trying to make sense of the results of our statistical analysis. And it was a great time. I learned a lot about the community. People learned about statistics. They shared their expertise from statistics with me. And so we share these examples because sometimes scientists think that when you involve the public, the work reduces in quality, but actually it can increase in quality in all sorts of ways. So why does this matter? Why does engaging the public in the science of AI, in creating knowledge about communities, in defending our rights matter? We live in a time where there are unprecedented attempts to unseat the role of universities and other knowledge institutions in American society. And there's also an extraordinary effort to preserve that beneficial role. This is a chart published by Nature that tries to illustrate the scale of all of the grants that were canceled by the administration, the federal administration, last year. And many are wondering how to maintain the public's trust in this time. I only have data about universities. I'd be really curious to see what it looks like for libraries. I imagine it's quite similar. But one answer comes from the American Higher Education Barometer from July. We see these attacks and people worry that there's deep mistrust of our knowledge institutions. But it turns out, based on this over 30,000 participant representative survey, that people of all parties trust universities and researchers more than almost any profession in America. And they see our work as important to democracy and local economies. And in fact, researchers suggest that our institutions strengthen our community relationships to maintain that trust and buffer against the threats that we face. And so in my work, I think of science as a partnership between researchers and the public. Every time I interview someone, invite them to participate in a study, work together on shared questions, I'm collaborating with the public who offer us their time, expertise, money, and trust. And even as we face these tremendous headwinds from forces that want to make ignorance, we can know that the public care about knowledge and will collaborate, whether it's cultivating knowledge through cooperation, defending people and communities through threats, or working alongside the public to evaluate AI systems. I don't entirely know what to expect from tomorrow or the next week in a time where there are very powerful forces set out to destroy our knowledge institutions, threaten the people who want to express themselves and free their minds, and also exploit the systems that we have already created. But I do know that if we're going to get there, we're going to need organizers, developers, lawyers, and principled communities to work together to create and cultivate knowledge together. Thank you.
All right. Well, I did not see any questions flying through the very busy Slack. Did anyone see anything in there? We have 5 minutes left. We could risk an in-person question. Do we want to try it? I see a mic runner. I see another mic runner. All right, one awkward silence has elapsed, and there are no questions in the room. Thank you so much, Dr. Matthias. It was a great talk. And let's all hear it.
Thank you, everyone. I'll be in the Slack if you want to ask me questions there. It's been lovely to meet some of you, and I hope you have a great rest of the conference.
All right, thank you. All right, now I get to exit the Zoom. Boom, bye-bye. Okay, I think if I remember my notes right, the next thing up is lightning talks at right now. We can get started early. We're not going to stand around here for 5 minutes waiting for the lightning talk slot to officially start. Let me get my thingy, and if you have a lightning talk, start lining up kind of in this area. Don't stand in front of that door because it makes that clicking noise, but just kind of be over there, and then we'll figure it out. Let me get I got to get yeah. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see. Someone said lightning talks. They're day 3. I can scroll. Today's day 3, right? I had trouble remembering that it was 2026 earlier. Up first, all right, Andromeda's on here. That's good. Up first, we have Corey Halpin, a story about keyboards. Why is the scrolling so wonky? Halpin, keyboards. Talk about keyboards and complain about touchpads. I'll just get this going here. Also, I'm the timekeeper. Did that just, what? Oh, hey, there's speaker notes now. That's new. Oh my goodness. All right, let me get the thing, and then I will wave at you when it is time to start. Corey Halpin.
Okay, so maybe this will be a little bit of sorbet. I just wanted to take the opportunity to absolutely be a turbo nerd about something incredibly esoteric in front of an audience that might appreciate it. I fell down the rabbit hole of ergonomic keyboards back before we were even sure if Y2K was going to be a problem. But in the process of doing that, I also found myself thinking, if I'm using a better shape for a layout that is fundamentally bad, am I leaving money on the table? In a standard QWERTY layout like this one, the letters that are most frequent are highlighted, and they are not on the home row. That's probably not ideal. You have to move your fingers a lot more than you might need to if you had a better layout. Most of the operating systems I use, and probably all of them at this point, support remapping your keyboard in software so that you can type on a better layout, and it's not like you were going to look at the keys anyway. I had heard of the Dvorak layout at that point, and I tried several times over several years to make the switch, and I just could never stick with it because I could not learn to type fast enough, quickly enough that I didn't get frustrated and give up. I've had more success lately. Let me tell you what changed. First thing, I learned that there are a whole universe of other alternate layouts that are equally efficient, and if you want to go down a deep rabbit hole, the link to the Carplex study on this slide will take you down one. I selected the layout called Colback to try. It puts all of the most common letters on the home row, but otherwise minimizes the changes from a standard layout so that it will be easier to relearn. That was step one. Step two, I assembled for myself a much better series of instructional tools to practice these things. The most impactful of those for me was one called Keyber, Keybr.com. It gives you new keys to learn in little groups. It tracks your error rates and your typing speeds for each key, and then generates English language words to type based on what you know and what you need to learn. This adaptive process for me was very fast. It got me competent on this new layout quickly enough that I didn't give up, but it's a little bit annoying to just be typing gibberish. 3 tools that I found for typing actual sentences. Type Racer is a fun one. You just type and then you're racing a little car against other people. It's fun, but it's a little bit on the competitive side if you want something more zen. Monkey Type gives you a little space to be by yourself in the dark if you like dark mode, just doing little exercises on your own. There's one called Z-Type, zty.pe, that gives you an asteroid-style game. The asteroids show up with words, you type the words to blow them up. With these things in hand, I actually managed to change layouts and stay with the new one, which brings me firmly into the realm of embodying XKCD 1806. One stick figure says to the other, "Oh, hey, can I load it up on your laptop?" The other one says, "Sure." "Oh, wait, just hit both shift keys to change over to QWERTY. Caps lock is control. Spacebar is caps lock. 2-finger stroll moves through space instead of time." And it brings us to the subtitle that says, "Once I've used a computer for a while, no one else will ever use it again." I've gone this far. If putting the most common letters on the home row is good, what about using chords, where you can hit multiple keys at a time, to put all of the letters on the home row so you never have to move any fingers off? That's not something the operating systems support out of the box. If you're on Mac OS X, Carabiner Elements can do that for you, along with loads of other input layer customizations. It might even fix your trackpads. Or if you're like me and FreeBSD is where your heart lives, there's a little helper called KeyD that can do similar things. So with those things in hand, I managed to successfully switch. If you are stuck like I was stuck, if you're interested in doing input layer customizations, or if you just want to increase your typing speed to have higher bandwidth through the computer, then hopefully some of these things will be useful for you. And if not, at least I hope I was entertaining. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Corey. Saved us 30 seconds for the changeover, too, which I'm going to need. Okay, Cynthia Schwartz, why you need governance, if I can find it. Cats, that's not it. Mathy subjects. Governance, there it is. I found it, everyone. Yay. All right. Is it doing the thing? Okay, it's doing the thing. All right, you're up. Ready, steady, go.
All right, my name is Cynthia Schwartz. I'm the program head for enterprise services at MIT Libraries. So I manage system administrators and system engineers and metadata folks. But a big part of my role is being the connection with the other departments of people who actually use the systems that we are managing. And one thing that is near and dear to my heart are governance groups. So I'm going to talk about governance groups. It gets me excited. I hope it gets the rest of you excited. I don't know that many people that get really excited about governance groups, but here we go. So who should be in your governance group? A governance group is a group of stakeholders. These are the functional users of your systems. These are the people in special collections, the people who work at the checkout desk. These are the actual librarians who are helping people find things. You should also have a technical person who knows the systems, because they can tell you, yes, that's possible, no, that will never happen. So having a technical person kind of present in your meetings and conversations is really useful. And then you need a project manager or some sort of convener, somebody to kind of bring it all together. What do governance groups do? They provide a sounding board for new projects and ideas. How many times has somebody said, oh gosh, I wish Alma could do this, or I wish Archive Space could do this thing. But there's nowhere, it's not broken, right? You're not gonna put in a help ticket for it, but you wanna tell somebody that it could be better, right? So these governance groups provide a place where those ideas can come. And not die, hopefully, but be considered. Then once you've got your ideas, you can put together a way to prioritize them. I've created a rubric for prioritization, and that is different whether we're talking about the ILS or if we're talking about repository systems. The things that contribute to prioritization may look different, but that's something you agree upon as a group. And then, once you've worked through the prioritization of the ideas or the projects, you can actually work with your organization's kind of project planning, work planning workflows, whatever those look like. They look different in every institution. So, governance groups, why do you need them? Because the future evolution of your system is important, and you should be intentional about planning for that evolution. You shouldn't just let it happen the way it might happen, but being intentional about it so that you can best serve your users, who then can best serve the patrons and community who use your systems. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, I got to do the thing with the what's it. Let me do this. I will stumble over the slides while I have Kayla Camacho come up here. Oh, okay, let's see. Okay. I could just use the search, couldn't I? Does that work? Camacho. Casey. All right. I should know that. Okay. Oh, there it is. I just saw it. Where'd it go? There it goes. Boop. Oh, it was Dropbox. Why are you garbage? Did you all see that I had to download the file? That's why we're not seeing the files sometimes. Dropbox has decided not to download them yet. Okay. Anyway, I'll stop and I'll let Kayla have a talk. All right.
Do I? Okay. Hi, I'm Kayla Camacho. I'm a software developer. Oh, microphone is over here. Hi, I'm Kayla Camacho. I'm a software developer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I have been learning a lot at this conference, and I've been loving being surrounded by people working with technology in libraries. So thank you for hosting this, and I'm very glad to be here. And I have a question for library and information impassioned people. How can we make discovery accessible for users in distress? And how do I go forward?
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got it. If you've ever stood in front of an audience and then found yourself unable to use PowerPoint, You might be familiar with the fact that emotions impact usability. When you're distressed or scared or angry, it can be harder to read, it can be harder to remember instructions, and frustrations and dead ends can really quickly degrade your trust in a tool. Why this is relevant to me, the organization that I work for stewards resources for people impacted by a mental health condition. These people can be seeking information related to any range of topics, including looking for peer support groups, looking for how to pay for affordable treatment, to really serious topics like what to do if you're facing involuntary hospitalization or incarceration. And the principles of universal design, which I'll just read this slide quickly, things being equitable, flexible, simple and intuitive, having perceptible information, a tolerance for error, low physical effort, and size and space for approach and use. All of these should be contributing to people having an easier time using things under different mental loads. However, those previous topics that I mentioned, on a good day, are really overwhelming to try to understand. On a really bad day, it's a challenge for me to think about how to make that simple and intuitive. So I am curious about the balance between keeping information perceptible, as in not oversimplifying things so that we lose important information that the user needs to know, while also managing overwhelm. When you are in distress and dealing with really complicated topics, things can feel less like a wandering single path, like in the previous slide, and more like a messy highway overpass where maybe you just want to get on an off-ramp as quickly as possible. And then that off-ramp can be a risk because people who are vulnerable and confused or overwhelmed may also be more susceptible to disinformation and predatory user experience patterns that are seeking to create ignorance, as we heard about in the keynote earlier. And as I think about those dynamics where there's so much disinformation and sometimes we're trying to serve information that we haven't had the capacity to make appropriately usable and categorized and organized, I also want to keep in mind that sometimes the answer is not just digital, and that the value that we are offering is not just the content that is served via our digital platforms, but it really more importantly is the community that stewards all of this information. And the goal ultimately should not just be to share knowledge with the user, but to build a relationship that connects them to the broader community of support that built that information in the first place. And that is all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. There's a fish pun on the slide. I appreciate a good fish pun. All right, that there. Whose is this? Corey Schmidt. Did we do that one? No, that one's next. What? All right, up next we have our second Corey of this block, Corey Schmidt, Gap Minder Improvements. Mind the gap. Boop. Eep, boop. All right, ready?
Hello, everybody. My name is Corey Schmidt. I'm an IT specialist at the Smithsonian Institution, and this is my first Code4Lib. I'll take any free applause at this point. But I signed up for this lightning talk because I had an idea to talk about good things that are happening in the world right now, because sometimes we need that uplifting news. but I'm a little bit of a two mind states at the moment, where the world may be a little bit on fire, but also there can be some good things happening. And the usual place that I go to feel better about the world and the state that we're in is this place called Gapminder. Gapminder is an organization that collects statistics and does data analysis and makes a bunch of charts about trends in human life and improving metrics and that kind of thing. And I was hoping to share a few of them with you today. Some of these include, we're doing a lot more science over the past 400 years, if we go back that far. A lot more science, which is great. We're learning more about the world, and we're learning more about our place in it, which is really great. We're also evaluating a lot more species, for instance. So we're doing more assessments, more cataloging of new kinds of species. One thing that when I was looking back at these charts and thinking about these a little bit more deeply, I also thought to myself, looking at this one, oh yeah, we're kind of in the 6th mass extinction right now. So there's a little bit of an asterisk to that. But hey, solar panels are way cheaper now, which is great. You know, we have more access to renewable energies, and more people have access to these renewable energies all over the world, which is a great thing. Speaking of, you know, all of our hard work that we do every day to increase access to materials online, there are a lot more people online, which, you know, all the work that we do, that's a great thing. That's a bigger audience. That's more people that we can affect every day. And then there's the Bluebird, Twitter, which, you know, not as great being a part of the internet, but at least, you know, there's something there. So as I was looking over all these charts, you know, when I first came across them years ago, it gave me a lot of hope, but now looking at them, I also realized that there are a lot of gaps to this data. There are a lot of stories that aren't being told. For instance, Gapminder, it has been critiqued as having a lack of attention to things like mental health, and their attempts to study income inequality have been criticized by other folks. Also, if you're going back 200 years, sometimes the data isn't as reliable as it is now. Not to mention, you know, 1800 was the height of colonialism, so a lot of people weren't doing great back then anyway. And the last thing I'll say too is, you know, the idea of progress is subjective and is fraught. So I can't, you know, talk about that more in a 5-minute talk, but all that being said, I'm just trying to hold all this together and trying to balance between, you know, all the struggles that we're facing now, but all of the things that we are currently doing to make our lives better. But at the end of the day, this is my sister and brother-in-law's dog, Duke, and every time I get to meet him and play with him, it's a great fun time. So, thank you all very much.
It's my obligation to report dog. All right, up next we have Brock Stussy. How was that? Yeah? Okay. All right, let's see. This is archiving for Keichung Radio. Can I find it? Oh, look at that, because I typed K in the search box. It's pretty cool. It's amazing how search works. We should get some people who know about that in a room together and like do stuff with that.
Let's not call it search, let's call it discovery.
Oh, that's a great idea. The joke was, for those in the live stream, let's not call it search, let's call it discovery. All right, okay, are you ready? All right, ready, and go!
All right, wait, I need to raise this, I guess. Or no, I'll just take this out. All right, hi, I'm Brock. This is my first time here at Code4Lib. So I work at Getty Center Museum, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about some extracurricular activities, and generally around kind of just an idea that's been floating in my head of how can I, as a librarian, archivist, like, how does that work fit into the non-professional communities I'm a part of? I guess, like, what does it mean to be a librarian in the wild? How do the skills that we have apply more broadly? And I had an experience with that with this radio station called K-Chunks. This is a community radio station in Los Angeles. It's an online radio station. It also broadcasts low power AM. It's entirely volunteer run, and it's been operating since 2011. I started there as a DJ 2-3 years ago. And they have an archive. So it's show recordings from 2011 to now. There's over 19,000 MP3 files that are accessible on the archive there. They're just served directly from an S3 bucket. The file names are what you search, basically, on the site. And when I started, someone had set up what actually was kind of a cool little script on the studio computer where DJs would rename their show that was recorded when they broadcast and drag it into another folder and create another folder with a date, right? And then there was a script that would run every night and upload those to the S3 bucket. But then also remote DJs, they'd have to upload to a Dropbox, and a volunteer would periodically, and often not periodically, upload that to the S3 bucket. And the archive was only just in one S3 bucket, and there was no backup. So you can imagine I was a little bit concerned about some of these things. I was a digital archivist at the time. And I said, wait, like I do this professionally, I can help, right? And so in short, I was able to work with them and create just a really simple web-based app for uploading to the S3 bucket that we can put on the studio computers. We can give that out to remote DJs and also set up a Deep Glacier bucket in the S3 to sync with the Access bucket to create a little bit of preservation for them. Here's what that looks like. It's super simple, and it does things like makes the file names and dates normalized. DJs don't have to create directories anymore, which is creating issues with the upload. And like I said, it also gives people remote access to uploading their shows. So I don't know. I guess I wanted to talk about this to just talk about something, what it means to be a librarian in the wild. I think it means first you have to be in the wild, so just do things that you enjoy, right? I didn't go looking for this opportunity. I went looking to be involved in a radio station and then found that they could use a librarian's help, right? We have a lot of knowledge and skills that are really important, and sometimes I think those can feel devalued, right? But people really need these skills and help, especially in our communities, and especially in this kind of pro bono way. So I'd be curious to hear about any community projects you've been involved in. Be curious to hear about if you like radio, like I do, as well. Yeah, that's it. There's the radio station, and you can be in touch with me. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Up next, this time for real, we've got Andromeda. Let's see if we can find her slideshow. All right. Oh my goodness. Why are there so many? Oh, because it's Lightning Talks. Okay. Close search. Let's try to do it alphabetically. I know I saw it. Yelton. There it is. Why does this look slightly different than it did a moment ago? Because it's a PDF. Okay. Mode switching. What is it? All right. There you go. Ready?
All right. I'm here to talk about your magic Boolean box. Who here likes Boolean logic? Okay, you and you and you and you. Cool. That's too many scrolling. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Boolean satisfiability problem, which you already know about if you were a computer science major, but I was not. So the Boolean satisfiability problem is basically, imagine you have a whole pile of Boolean formulae. Can you find values for all the variables in those formulae that cause them to be true, y/n? So for instance, if you have the formula A and B, this formula is true when A is true and B is true. So that's cool, and that's also easy, but you could imagine you might have a very large number of values, and you might have a very large number of equations you're trying to simultaneously satisfy, and you wouldn't just be able to like look at it and wing it. So it turns out people have built technologies for doing that called SAT solvers. And the way a SAT solver works is you shove a whole bunch of Boolean formulas in one end, and then magic happens, and math comes out the other end. That's actually literally all I know about how they work on the inside. I had a whole bunch of Boolean formulas I didn't know how to solve. I needed to outsource that. I have a magic box. It's great. There are a lot of people who build SAT solvers out there. There are lots of open source ones. I have spent some time using the Z3 one, which is an open source one out of Microsoft. It's free, and it has like C bindings, which I don't care about, and Python bindings, which I do, and JavaScript bindings, which is novel. Because let me tell you, the overlap between like the SAT solver community and the JavaScript community is very small. There's also like super heavy duty ones that are made for solving extremely complicated problems. Like my husband is a roboticist, and they have a SAT solver that's like $30,000 per license. So, you know, your problems can vary in scope. But I'm going to talk a bit about Z3 because it's cool and fun, and maybe you have math problems you need to solve. It looks kind of like this in its Python world. I don't do C. I don't do JavaScript if I can help it. So Python is great. You define some variables. Here I'm defining A and B as Boolean variables. And then I'm doing the same Boolean formula I did before. I'm assuming I've instantiated a solver object in the past, and I am adding a formula to it, which is AND of A and B. So I want A and B to be true. And then if I run solver.check, it will emit either SAT for satisfied or unsat if it can't find a solution. There might be more than one solution, in which case you get what you get. In this case, there's only the one. There's also some other cool stuff you can do if you have like more complicated math going on. You can do at most or at least feed it a whole list of variables and a number that you would like at most this many or at least this many to be true. You can do implies, so if A is true, then B is true, but you know, if A is not true, we make no statements about B's. You can add soft constraints to your solver, so if you would like to nudge it in particular directions but not require it to go in those directions, you can define optimizer functions that weight particular solutions. And you don't have to, in fact, just do Booleans. Your variables A, B, whatever can actually be numbers. And so if you're trying to look for equations that have an intersecting range where that is in your good space, whatever it is, you can do that. So if you have like greater than, less than situations, that's totally an option. Anyway, I have enjoyed playing with SAT solvers, and perhaps you will too.
All right, thank you, Andromeda. Boop, boop, boop. Matt, do you have slides? Okay, Matt does not have slides, so you just get to look at him talking, I guess. All right, take it away, Matt.
Yeah, my condolences for not having a better visual for you folks, but there was a slide open, so figured I'd inflict some more discussion on you. So I'm Matt Sherman. I'm the digital curation librarian over at Drexel University Libraries, just on the other side of the Schuylkill, and wanted to just sort of bring up a little bit of a discussion that we've been having because my role is within Drexel Archives. So we're dealing with digital archives and our digitized materials. And one of the conversations and issues we've been noticing, I think a lot of people have probably seen with when you're trying to provide things through digital collections, it's a great opportunity to expand the ability to get the materials that we're stewarding in front of more people. But there's always way more that we have physically than we're actually able to share online. And even in our case, we have probably 15 to 20 or more years worth of scans. So we're talking gigs to terabytes of things that have been scanned that we don't have in our digital collection system, because writing metadata takes almost probably more time than actually doing the scanning work, which any folks who've been in digitization are probably very familiar with this. And so one of the things we've been talking about is there a way to sort of speed this up a little bit? Because when we think, especially the university archivist, when we think about archives, there's very much it's a very popular model of more product, less process, because the longer it takes us to process materials, the less accessible the things that we're stewarding are to people. And we're wondering, well, how can we apply this to our digital collections? How can we get more things online? Which, of course, we run into that classic issue of digital files need metadata, at least some amount, so that people can actually know what they're looking at. They can find it. But our archivist has also made the interesting point that because at digital collections we're usually creating records at the item level, that's sort of a disconnect from traditional archival thinking, where we're much more at the collection series box folder levels. Like, we rarely will describe items unless they're of incredible sort of historic or research value. So we're wondering if maybe there's some ways we can kind of split the difference on some of these things, maybe creating records for folders worth of materials, but of course we still need to have some amount of description of the materials inside for people to be able to interact with. And of course this impacts on all sorts of concerns with accessibility that we've been talking about over the course of the conference. The DAT-OCM talk, I think, has some really great theoretical stuff, but we want to figure out, all right, how can we apply this practically, especially because a lot of digital collection systems are, what we're stuck with is not what I would prefer to use, but so there's still work to be had. But I want to just throw some of this discussion that we've been having amongst ourselves out to the community, and I would be curious to get other people's thoughts and feedback, and see if this is something other people are dealing with or want to think through. So feel free to catch me on Slack or after the conference. So thanks for your time, all.
All right. At some point, if I need to vamp, I will tell my story about how Schuylkill County, PA, was involved in my cataloging class. Susan Hoover, 30 seconds of ASMR cats. I'm assuming there are slides of cats in here somewhere. Day 3 Lightning Hoover, look at that. Who would have guessed? All right, Code4Lib. Ready, go!
Good morning, and welcome to Code4Lib 2026. I'm Susan Hoover, Metadata Services Coordinator at the University of Houston, and your host for this very short segment. Please enjoy this 2-minute compilation of silent cat videos. The slides are on Zenodo, and after the video, there are 2 slides describing the videos, but I will annotate live. This is George, a fluffy white cat in the backyard encountering a squirrel. George sees the squirrel. The squirrel sees George. This is George lying on his back, showing off his fluffy, fluffy, fluffy white belly and his cute little paws, curled up, wagging his tail. This is Maisie in front of some dead foliage, dead vegetation, we'll call it. Maisie is a black cat with yellow eyes. She decides to lie down. Maize-colored eyes. These are Simba and Nyla, tabby littermates. This is Simba licking Teddy. Teddy is a solid black cat who is a teddy bear. Teddy reaches up to tell Simba no. Now Teddy is licking Walter. Walter had no name for about 5 weeks. Walter is the newest addition. Walter is solid white. Teddy and Walter again. Now it's mutual. Teddy and Walter are lying here licking each other's heads. Simba is curled up in the background, having no part of it. And finally, a random kitten from the internet being licked by something that's not a cat. But the kitten is so cute, and it shows off its belly. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, thank you.
Yay, cats. All right, if you're following along on our home game, you'll see that the thing says that Carrie Gordon is going next to talk about 2027, but he has deferred to Stefano. So Stefano Casu is up next, if I can find the slides. Why are all these slides open? Oh, look at that right there. Oh, you found it. I found it. It was so easy. Oh, because I guess I closed all the slides. So PowerPoint had to close and then open again. Okay. How about I stop complaining and let Stefano do his lightning talk? Ready? Go!
Hi, Stefano. Normally I work with large libraries, but this project that I'm talking about is not affiliated with any of my current employers. This project started resolving a problem for a small organization that I was helping to find an archival and digital preservation solution for at-risk cultural heritage materials that live in areas of conflict and have severely limited freedom of movement, funds, difficult access to technology, and unreliable connectivity. My first, most natural course of action was to go through the usual tools that are used in academic libraries and institutions like DSpace, ArchiveSpace, Fedora, etc. They did not work in this case because they are too expensive, they are hard to set up, they're high maintenance, and they require a lot of specialized stuff. In short, they are made for institutions that have a constant cash flow to maintain, that have a mission to maintain their archives. And we needed a solution soon without having to wait for any funds. The answer was a Pocket Archive that is an ad hoc minimalist service that performs very specific and essential functions. It has a tiny computing footprint, runs on a near zero budget, serves small localized archives, and can work without an internet connection. And in spite of that, it needs to be discoverable, and it can be aggregated into larger hubs if a project grows beyond its boundaries. Pocket Archive actually runs on this Raspberry Pi with a grand total of $150. You can have an archival system that you can stick in your pocket and pack up if you have to go because you're under attack. It does the usual things that archives do. You have, this is an 11:30 p.m. Slide. So you have a zip with files and metadata that you compile in a CSV, in a spreadsheet. You drop it in a hot folder. A Pocket Archive grabs it and puts everything in an archival file system with checksum, etc. And put all the metadata in RDF. It's all linked data under the hood, so it is harvestable by larger services. And at the same time, it makes a static site with the materials that you can share online and offline, for example, on a thumb drive. Pocket Archive is now in beta phase. It's slated for a release candidate at the end of March, so this is a snapshot of its presentation, the static website. You can see it's pretty standard looking. There is even a little quick search, actually, a search page that runs on JavaScript, so it's entirely run on the browser. Has some, very configurable metadata model. It's very flexible. It's all done by configuration. Metadata can be all sorts of things, including relationships. It's linked data. It has a structure component, so you can structure things in very complex ways if you want, only by arranging your contents in folders and files and in the spreadsheet. That's it. If you want to know more about it, talk to me, read the documentation. Thank you.
I'm being taken to task on Slack for mispronouncing Stefano's first name, even though I'm Greek, which is deserved. Okay, up next we have Carrie Gordon to talk about 2027. As in Code4Lib 2027, as in Carrie wants to retire, I think? No? Oh, that's not this time. Okay. All right. Okay. No slides? No slides. All right. Take it away, Carrie.
Okay. I'm going to be careful here because I've blown up the room every time I picked up this mic, but here we go. So this is a very short presentation. We are going to have a breakout after the break, right here in front of the podium about Code4Lib. I'm really trying hard to say Code4Lib rather than Code4Live, which I've said for 20 years. Immediately after the break, we're going to have a session on what it takes to put together a conference. And even if you're not planning on doing a Code4Lib Con next year, please come to this. We need to get people involved. This is done 90% by volunteers who just show up and do the work. And a lot of times, it's the same volunteers year after year. We need more people involved. We need more institutions involved. And if you have an institution that you want to volunteer for a conference, maybe next year, that would be great too. So just show up, hear about what it takes, and hopefully we'll see you after the break. I have no idea how
I'll take care of it. You just got to force the thing into what's it. We're a little ahead, so that's cool. I will take the MC privilege of telling that story about my cataloging class. Why not? So one day, the late great Jerry Sy, who was my cataloging teacher, he was so cool, gave us a homework assignment at the end of class one day when we were doing classification. He said, figure out the Dewey Decimal Number for bituminous coal mining in Schuylkill County, PA. And, some people get it already. You get it, right? So, you go home, do the thing. You got to look up the what's it. in the book and whatever. And then the next time class met, my eventually would-be wife, who was sitting next to me and not yet, this is, some things you get a sense of a person and then you end up marrying them. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. She was in the class with me, and the next class when he went up and he said, all right, so who did the homework? What's the Dewey Decimal Code for bituminous coal mining in Schuylkill County, PA? She kind of shyly raised her hand. She was like, but Schuylkill County's anthracite country. And he was like, yes, that's exactly right. And the point of the exercise was that you can generate a Dewey Decimal number for anything, whether it exists or not. Whether it's verisimilitudinous, whether it reflects reality or it doesn't. You could make a Dewey Decimal number for, building skyscrapers on Mars. In contrast to LC, where the only call numbers that exist are ones that LC has specifically created and inserted into the index. Dewey is supposed to be a palette of all human knowledge, whether it exists or not. Anyway, so every time I think about Schuylkill County or Schuylkill anything, I think about that anecdote and how it is, now I know that it is anthracite country and not bituminous country. Also, apparently there are many coal mining museums in Pennsylvania. I wonder why. Anyway, it's time for break. Go have a break. There is supposedly something's in the hall, if I remember right, some kind of nibble. And we're going to come back at some o'clock. What o'clock are we coming back at? Let me tell you before you go. According to the thing, we are to come back at 11:05, so it is a short-ish break. And then, but then there's breakout sessions 2. Let me do that. Let's see what breakout sessions 2 is so you know where to go. There it is. Can we get it on the AV team? All right, breakout sessions 2. Ballroom A1, Arc Light Interest Breakfast. Ballroom A2, Alma admin and users. Ballroom E1, unassigned. Ballroom E2, unassigned. Main ballroom, up front. Code4Lib 2027, let's talk planning. Main room, house left, unassigned. Off-site, meet Eddie at 11 a.m. in front, presumably at the lobby. Science History Institute library tour, max 15 people. Don't snooze or you won't have a spot. And those are the breakout sessions. And be back here at the What's It in this room after the breakout sessions for, I think, the final talk block at 11:50. So back here, 11:50 for group 7 and the last talk. Enjoy your break and enjoy your breakout sessions. Hey, it's time for a conference to start again, everyone. Hey! Enough coffee, come back in the room. Hey! No, you will get a full and attentive audience. That's how this works. Is this your first? This is your first Code4Lib?
It's not my first.
But your first presenting. Ever. First time presenting ever. Everyone.
Like since high school speech class.
Like since high school. At least you had a high school speech class.
It was required. She gave me a D, so.
We'll give it a couple. Hey, you getting coffee? Come in here. Who is that? I can't tell from here. My terrible memory for names doesn't help me in a situation like this. This is, if I could sing, I would sing right now. What's a good come home song? I don't know. I don't know. Take me home, country road. Someone was blasting that at like 11 p.m. last night. I don't know if it was my neighbor or if it was like in the courtyard and loud enough for me to hear it. Oh my goodness, it was so loud. All right. Hey, it is actually that time, so I am going to start with our next and final block of talks. We have no notes for this moment, so we're going to get straight into it. Today we have, how do you say your last name? Olive? Olive, like the thing you eat. All right, Lawrence Olive, and the title is, Do You Fix It When No One Knows It's Broken? TLDR, you'll be sorry if you don't. All right, and the slides are up there, and I will make sure that you can actually see your speaker notes, because that would be nice, wouldn't it? All right, and you got 20 minutes. Take it away. Not yet. Don't start the time yet. Now I know what Carrie was grumbling about. Okay, take it away.
So, let me think that's right. Hi, my name is Lauren. Better. Do I have to stand like this the whole time? Oh, jeez. I'll just stand close. My name is Lawrence Olive. As we were kind of chatting about before we started, this is not my first Code4Lib, but it is my absolute first time presenting, like anywhere. So a little terrified. I think it was Kayla that was talking earlier about panic when you're under duress, or inability while you're under duress. Anyway, I work for the Library of the Getty Research Institute in Los Angeles as part of the J. Paul Getty Trust. And shout out to Eric, who mentioned that we are not part of Getty Images, so I can't help you with rights on your images, which I get a lot. And this just looks like a big jumble of letters to me right now, so I'm going to let you read it while I just give you a brief summary. And I was trying to make some very basic changes on some data, and I discovered that when I was trying to make those changes, that the data in the background was such a nightmare that there was no possible way for me to code around what I was running into. What ended up happening was I had to pull back all of this data, completely restructure it, and reload it up to the Internet Archive, which I'll just be referring to as IA for the rest of the talk. Originally, because I spent 2.5 years doing this project, I thought that I should document it somehow, and I wrote a paper about it, and the paper, even though there are QR codes for it, still needs a ton of editing. And when I showed it to someone to help me go through it, they said that the paper sounded more like a conversation, and so maybe I wanted to give a talk about it instead. So here I am. This is what a book looks like at IA. IA does handle a bunch of different things, a bunch of different types of data, it's probably most well known by a lot of people for the Wayback Machine. But I'm going to specifically be talking about working with books today. Now, they allow you to contribute to them in a bunch of different ways. You put your images into a package, usually into a zip or a tar file. There are other ways you can submit, and you can submit a JPEG or a JP2 or a TIFF, and you can put it in a tar or a zip. And no matter how you submit it, and no matter what language it's in, or if it's left to right or right to left, it's going to show up in this lovely format every time. There's a page turner at the top, there are page image at the top with a page turner there, and all the metadata is listed down below. The problem with this is that with all of their amazing flexibility and ways to submit your information to them, it allows gross inconsistency on our part when we make the contribution. So the scanner field. There are different optional metadata types or metadata labels that you can use, and one of the optional items is the scanner field. And so the scanner field is used more internally by IA to identify their rigs. And what I mean by that is that the identifier that's in there lists the location of where their rig is put and also the operator of it. They're called scribes, and basically a scribe is that operator and rig embedded locally at a university or an institution to digitize all your materials for you. And again, completely optional, which that's not how it was presented to me, but it actually is an optional field. What we started doing when we were contributing to them is that we kind of followed their model. But what we did with the rig pattern was that we decided to do the camera back and the manufacturer. So it's kind of a backwards way. Instead of make and model, it was model and make, and it was put into the scanner field. So the way that we identified what we were going to put in that field was that it was determined by the workflow that it went through. And when we only had one workflow, our Triventus scan robot, easy to identify. It was hard-coded into the code to identify the value that was going into that field. Later it got a little more complicated when we added a DT scanner, and that had different camera backs that was put onto it. So whenever that camera back changed, the code had to be updated because it's hard-coded. Again, not super scalable, and that became really clear when we added a third unit in. Now that third unit added into the second workflow, and because it was in that second workflow, and because it's hard-coded, even though it was very different equipment, got listed as the same thing. So it was about this time, I just realized that this was like down. It was about this time that I got interested in EXIF and embedded metadata. And so I came up with the bright idea that instead of using this hard coding, which wasn't scalable and was inaccurate in a lot of cases, that we would be reading the direct EXIF information from the camera and populating those fields. So I also became aware that I was now part of the problem because there was the original hard-coded that was kind of correctish, that middle period where it was hard-coded but wrong information, and now I'm piling on top of that good information-ish. So, there we go. So then I was looking at someone else's material, and I noticed the camera field. Camera field? What's the camera field? And if we have a camera field, then what's the scanner field? So I hit up IA. I said, what is going on with these two fields, and how do I properly use them? And they said, well, you don't really properly use them. They are optional fields, and you don't need to use them. We use scanner internally for our rigs, and they explained that whole process. And the camera field is for the camera. So I decided, okay, what I needed to do was I was going to update my code, and for all of my new submissions, I was going to populate the camera field, and I was going to properly populate it with the EXIF information that gave the make and model of the unit. So about the same time, I had read something about DevOps and allowing users, especially end user, or not users, but allowing staff to make these corrections that they found, these little weird quirky things that affect their workflows, and to correct things that result in workarounds. And if you allow them these little slivers of time, that in the long run, even though you've taken some time out of their workday, giving them the time to make these improvements actually fixes workflows and makes things much more efficient. You know, sometimes this meets with resistance, where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I would counter that with, if it's working, but with workarounds, it's not working well. So, and even during this project, I was asked, you know, is this really the best use of your time to be fixing this? So, but I decided, I'm clever enough to fix this. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna write a script, and I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna pull all the old submissions that we had made, and I was going to update the camera field with the make and model. And like I say, I decided to make it make and model because that's what we use. We don't say PlayStation Sony, we say Sony PlayStation, Ford Mustang, Kraft Mac and Cheese, whatever. So looking at ILC, you know, ILCE 6000 Sony just looked so backwards to me. So I decided that it needed to be corrected and populated the right way. But again, I also knew that this meant that I was going to have to pull everything that we'd submitted in the past and update those. But I'm clever enough, I can fix this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to IA, I'm going to pull back all of our submissions. I'm just going to go, I'm going to find the image file, I'm going to pull it back, read the EXIF, populate, and move on. So I start making my corrections, and I realized that as it's chugging along, and I see that it's making my corrections, and I'm ever so pleased with myself, all of a sudden, item not found. Okay, well, let me look. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm clever enough to fix my fix. I am going to look and see what's going on, and I'm like, oh, that's right. So at various points, because of different system configurations, we submitted 32-bit zip, we submitted 7-zip, we submitted tar, we submitted 64-bit zip. And those extensions and that type of file, geez, I'm running through this time quicker than I thought. Because of the different ways that you could submit files, it affects the file path. And so I thought, okay, still, I'm clever enough to write around this. So I adjust all the paths, and I run it, and item not found. And then I realized, oh wait, we used to name the files 001 TIFF, and then later when we hit 1,000 pages on a couple things which caused unknown chaos, we changed it to 0001.tiff. And then because a new system had come into play, we had to change it, not starting with a 1, but starting with a 0. So I write around all of these different configurations, and I have covered all of my bases with all of the different various changes that we've done historically, and it crashes, file not found. So maybe I'm not clever enough to fix this. And because with everything that I can think of, I keep running into an exception. So the horror. What I realize is I can't easily make a straightforward correction on a simple field. My big project has just turned into a massive project. What I need to do is I need to standardize all this data. I've got to go up to IA, I've got to pull back our image package, I've got to undo the packaging, I've got to, while I have it here, go through and renumber all of these so that it's not the 3-digit, it's not the 4-digit, it doesn't start with the 1. Everything starts with 4-digit 0, repackage it, push it back up, and then I can fix my beloved camera field. So, and by the way, the lessons learned, someone brighter than me would figure out sooner than halfway through this project that while I had all the images in my hot little hand, I could have extracted the EXIF information and made the correction for the camera right then and there. But we're going to move on. So it was going to be a colossal movement of data. Some of these were a couple hundred megs of information, of images, and some of them go up to like 45 gigs for one book. So, and the average is somewhere around the teens of gigabytes. So again, it's a huge motion of data. It really wasn't the processing that took any time. It was really pulling that image package down from IA, then doing the processing, and then pushing it back up. Now, again, I need to mention, IA had their DOS attack. Okay, fine, happens. But when it stopped running, I thought it was my code. And I spent a good couple of days trying to fix something that was not broken. So yeah, that was an enlightening experience. So more horror is the data looks like what? I am opening, this thing is slipping, it's not me. One thing that I noticed was I could possibly skip this section as just errors, and maybe I should. But when you extract a zip file or when you create a zip file or a tar file, you can create it in a way that is just the folder and the items inside. You can also do it where it gives you not only that folder or not only that file, but the entire hierarchy. And you can kind of see in the red what happens there. If in our new setup, the way we do it now in the standard that I've set, is that it's just the folder and the file and the TIFF files inside. But if you don't flip the right switch, all right. If you don't flip the right switch, that whole path gets interpreted into the file name at IA. So again, we get to this whole thing of, I was never going to be clever enough to code around all those exceptions. This standardization really did kind of have to be done. I'm going to skip the thing about hidden files because there's the whole thing where if you have a dot in a file name or at the beginning of a file name, I was watching files extract and then all of a sudden they would just disappear, which is a whole other thing. And yeah, like I said, I'm going to skip those errors. So I'm going to get to my closing, which is don't waste your time trying to code around the exceptions. It is a daunting task to standardize your data, but it's really going to help you in the long run. This could have been caught at multiple points along the way, and it kept being avoided. So to an extent, I want to say to management that you need to encourage, but also listen to complaints of people that are working with things on the ground. You know, it took me until I became a department of one through a series of reorgs and realignments and that I basically became a department of one and didn't have anyone telling me no, so I could take on this project. So don't take the chance that you may have to wait for some rogue employee with OCD that's willing to spend 2.5 years working on your data. Go ahead, listen to the people that work with this stuff. Again, this is not me. Listen to people that are working with these things, pay attention to what they're saying, and go ahead and get that data cleaned up. Making it programmatically accessible, it makes me wonder in this whole project, one of the things that came to light for me was that I wonder how many other projects have been avoided because data looked like this. and how many, how I've helped out people in the future be able to take on basic projects like this. Because I know that in a very predictable way that my code is going to run on this data. With one known exception, which is known and is excusable, I know that it's going to run solidly on this. So yes, even if you're the only one that knows that the back-end data is broken, fix it. Bring it into the light and fix it sooner than later. And I think that's my time. Oh, look at me.
Thank you very much. That was a good talk. I like talks about error correction, like project error correction. Up next, we have, where is it on the thing? David Ragnar Nelson and Sabrina Bocanegra. Okay. Integrating open repositories and digital humanities technologies to foster civic engagement. Oh, I need to find the slideshow. Is it here somewhere? Group 7. Yeah, offer. Now, there it is. There it is. Wow! Boo! 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 All right, there we go. Take it away. Oh, wait, how long is this talk? This talk is notes. Tell me notes. Notes. You could probably take 15 minutes. Okay. Where'd it go? Okay, go!
Hello. Can everyone hear me? This one. Oh, just kidding. Going this way. Hello. There we go. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Sabrina Bocanegra.
I'm David Ragnar Nelson.
And we are newbies to Code4Lib. And how do I do this? Over? There we go. And today our presentation will cover an overview of the project, The Revolutionary City, a portal to the nation's founding. And we're going to talk about the history of the project, our scholarly and content models, and our challenges, both technical and social, that we faced over the past 6 years. Since we only have 15 minutes, let me jump in. Okay, the Revolutionary City, a portal to the nation's founding, or like we call it, Rev City, is a multi-year, multi-institutional digital collaboration started in late 2020 in anticipation of 2026 and the semi-quincentennial, which is 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The Rev City portal was created as an open access online repository of archival materials designed for a broad audience. So think students and teachers, historians and scholars, and the general public, with the main purpose of highlighting the diverse stories of the American Revolution through the perspectives of Philadelphians who actually lived through that era. Our core goal is to provide unprecedented access to digital access to collections that have long been dispersed across institutions throughout the Philadelphia area. So by digitizing and bringing these materials together in one searchable platform, we aim to transform how people actually encounter the revolutionary period. And equally important is our commitment to surfacing underrepresented voices and by enhancing the metadata of all the remaining manuscript material from this time period in Philadelphia. And so we're making these voices and people, communities within the material more discoverable and expanding that narrative beyond just the Founding Fathers and the Continental Congress, but we really want to highlight the broader community that shaped and experienced the American Revolution. So over the past few years, the Rev City team has approached this work in 3 major prongs. The first, mass digitization and metadata enhancement. We prioritize collections that are difficult to access, and particularly those held by under-resourced organizations. Our second prong is digital engagement, which we'll talk mostly about today. So we develop these scholarly content that can be adapted for a broader audience, including web-based essays, document spotlights, and we use these interactive technologies that David will elaborate on, later to provide additional layers of access and interpretation. And our third prong here is community engagement. So while scholars and educators are our built-in audience for the work, they're also our collaborators in helping us interpret the records in ways that resonate with new communities. So where are we today? The portal itself includes 6,900 unique digital objects representing 66,000 pages drawn from 9 partner institutions. So users now can access educational materials, essays, and explore interactive visualizations. And perhaps the most requested from our stakeholders, they can also access transcriptions, both created human created transcriptions and machine generated, making these manuscripts far more searchable and usable. So in short, RevCity is not simply a digitization project as I thought when I started, and that is where our challenges lie. David?
Okay, so in a fever planning session, we came up with the pyramid model for RevCity, which sort of describes how we envision the scholarship model of RevCity. So we have at the foundation digitization, which is the most important part of it. The second layer of the pyramid is transcription. So transcription builds upon digitization. Building on transcription is content, by which we understand essays and interpretive content that help guide users through the portal. And only on top, the very tippy top of the pyramid, do we have engagement, the thing that everyone cares about the most. But by engagement we mean public programming, conferences, events, and so on. Now, we framed the model in this way to show clearly the priorities that we have for the project. So education team needs to put their brakes on and let us digitize a little bit. Right, and that's why all the work on digitization and transcription is necessary and needs a lot of funding. But I also want to say that one of the problems that we didn't necessarily anticipate at the start is that the pyramid model directly corresponds to our tech stack. So the things at the bottom, digitization and transcription, are the things that we're most capable of handling. And as we start to get up into the content and the engagement, our systems don't necessarily handle these things as well. So this is the technology that we're using for this project. The core of it is Islandora, which is our digital repository holding all of the material. We then, on top of that, use 2 Python-based utilities for doing handwritten text recognition. Kraken, which is a mostly command line utility, but also provides an API for doing handwritten text recognition, and eScriptorium, which is a Django-based project that helps us generate training data to train handwritten text recognition models. We're actually moving away from Kraken and into other things, which is just part of the complexity of this project as well. And then we have a bunch of sort of piecemeal things that we're using for visualization, digitization. A lot of our essays are just written using the Drupal interface of Islandora, which is a bit of a challenge itself. But then we also use d3.js for interactive for interactive visualizations, the Nightlab tools, Timeline.js, and StoryMap.js for storytelling. We do mapping in Leaflet, and we also sometimes use external resources such as Observable, which is a notebook system to help us integrate these things into Drupal. Some of these tools require a programmer or a developer. Some of them can be used by a non-developer, and that's part of the challenge that we've had as well. So, the question is our project a Mr. Potato Head or is it a Frankenstein? We're hoping that it's more of a Mr. Potato Head, but that's actually even a problem in some way there because all these things feel very disintegrated and very difficult to work with. So, that's the broad overview of the project. I'm now going to go into some of the challenges that we've had to deal with. And we're going to talk about containers. Everyone loves, I'm the container person at work, and people are making fun of me for this, for saying everything's a container. So 2 of our main cores of the tech stack are containerized software, which would be our Islandora instance, and also eScriptorium, which we can install via a container. So I think Sabrina's going first here.
Yes. So Just a brief history from the social part. From the beginning, our priority was to digitize as much as possible and build a functional, user-friendly interface that would scale up at some point. So our pilot team relied on an in-house remote developer to manage the back end and customize an out-of-the-box Islandora instance. So at the time, Islandora felt really logical because we needed to get the project up and running quickly, and our APS digital library was already built on it. So there was a very vague sense of what digital humanities tools or softwares we might use eventually. And so 2 years into the project, and we're still really early days, we had a sort of this like, shoot moment when our developer unexpectedly had to leave the project, and we quickly transitioned to an external developer or vendor, Born Digital, aka Discovery Garden, go check them out. And we were gearing up for a migration to Islandora 8 or I2. So just a lesson learned for me, talk to your digital humanities staff if you have one, early and often. So David wasn't here around when I first started, but because it's never just a digitization project.
Great. Yeah, and that's important to mention that I wasn't even on the project at the start, so there really was no sense of what the digital humanities would be. But then, so again, going back to the idea of containers, you know, our Islandora instance is managed, so it's fairly easy to, we don't have to worry with that. eScriptorium, we chose to go with the container approach because it was an easy install. And so, you know, when we think about open source, there's a move towards containerization because it promotes reusability, and that's a good thing. And this allowed us to move really quickly, but it also sort of increased the burden for us to contribute meaningfully to these open source projects. So this caused a lot of headaches for me. Basically, the issue that we had was getting Kraken and eScriptorium and Islandora to talk to each other. And we ran into a lot of problems. There's a lot of code that I've put on GitHub if you want to investigate this, if you have this problem yourself. Our IIIF export from our digital library from Islandora didn't work correctly. I had to harvest things manually from Islandora to get them into eScriptorium. eScriptorium's API didn't have a way to export everything. We just there was really a lot of things that probably if we had not gone the containerized route, we could have fixed ourselves pretty quickly. But we really struggled with this at that point. And it's still kind of a challenge for us, and I'm very happy to get into specifics later with anyone who wants to discuss this a little bit. I will also say, piggybacking on the last talk, in the migrations, thank you, our file names all got changed from very nice, neat, organized file names to very random ones. And so that was another integration challenge that had to be handled via the Drupal API. So really just a lot of messes here. And again, this leads me to my next sort of challenges. This is a multi-institution project, and we did have a lot of difficulty with working with other contributors. So we had digitized material for a lot of contributors, but then we got to the point where we wanted to bring on contributors who had resources and could help us, maybe things already digitized. Our original idea was to use systems for interoperability, such as IIIF or OAH PMI, to get these to integrate. Those endpoints didn't exist in our Islandora instance to allow that, so again, that was something that I had to sort of code my way into a solution for.
Yeah, so in the interest of time, really I just want to, talking about interinstitutional challenges, I really just want to talk about the financial reality of this collaboration, the costs of digital projects, and you think about the staff, the infrastructure, the long-term maintenance. All of these rise every year, so when applying for funding, we were making the case not only to our partners, and we have a lot of them, but also within our own institution about why these costs or these shared costs matter. And so really I just want to say that collaboration obviously is essential for projects like this, but it does require that shared understanding of what sustainability truly costs right now.
Great, and catapulting towards the end, our last thing is how did we manage basically to work through all of our, get all of our interactive content. Well, we oftentimes had to do hacky things because we're working in a vendored CMS. We can't necessarily go in and develop things ourselves. We had to be creative. Some things I'm a little ashamed of, such as putting this network visualization directly in the rich text editor, which I do not recommend anyone doing, or using a external solution such as Observable to embed things. This visualization was actually done by my colleague Yumi Shiroma, who's here in the audience with us. But basically, all of the sort of digital humanities apparatus that we wanted to put on top of this had to be done in an ad hoc manner. Some things requiring developers and creative solutions, other things using embeddable things that content experts could work on. And again, occasionally terrifying everyone.
And lastly, I just want to say, just thinking about our technical team and how we've always been really small, and just thinking about, I don't fully count myself as a technical staff. I see my role as more hybrid. So as a repository manager, I've had no choice but to build these workflows that function smoothly without requiring the deep technological or technical expertise. So really sustaining the project has been what we kind of say is our beg, borrow, steal approach, where we're begging to reallocate funds, and we are borrowing from pulling colleagues from different areas and sending them out to different institutions to digitize or help us with the digital humanities aspects. And then we've stolen time out of our own existing responsibilities to keep the project going. So we've learned that these scrappy solutions really come with a little bit of friction, seeing as staff who are grant funded or based outside of our department or even close collaborators can be hesitant to adapt or adopt new workflows that are perceived as technical, even when Drupal and eScriptorium are really designed with the end users in mind. So with that, I just want to say we're deeply grateful for every bit of support that we have in this project, but we have learned that supporting others in technical tasks can sometimes be just as labor intensive as doing the work, and that's something we want to prioritize in future projects.
So thank you. We're just down the street. If you see our building, you can wave. And
All right, before the next What's It gets set up, I'm going to walk over to my computer here and read the thing that I was told to read. This is easier than trying to find it on my tablet. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Ah! Hey, what's that thing I'm supposed to read? Someone tell me. There's a phone, an iPhone at the desk. If you're missing your iPhone, identify the distinctive wallpaper and whatever meeting you had at 11, and they'll be able to find it. Or they'll be able to give it to you. Okay, is this our last talk? Last talk, Margaret Heller. All right, but then there's going to be exciting, fabulous prizes after the last talk, so don't go anywhere just yet. All right, so we have Margaret Heller with a 10-minute talk, Times of Wintering in Library Technology, How Community Can Help Us Through. And I need to make sure your thing is open. Did you put it in the what's it? Okay, let's see. What's the word that's in the title? Heller. There's an interesting thought. Heller. Oh, look at that. Okay. Okay. Boom. Oh. No, Microsoft. I do not want an exciting new slideshow experience with AI. All right, take it away, Margaret.
Gonna hold this. Thanks everyone. It's such an honor to finish out the conference with all of you. So I'm Margaret Heller. I am head of digital services at DePaul University Library. I've been there for about 2 years, so some of you may remember me from a previous institution up the road a little bit, but I have been at DePaul, so that is where I am now. So I am here for a few brief minutes before you leave to convince you or remind you of a couple of things. We are in dark times, but dark times come and go. Security is an illusion. We always know it's going to go away. When you are in dark times, use resources you've collected and do less, but do the right things. And in easier times, build up your resources and share with others. Community creates strength, and we are here to build and maintain community. In fact, the very reason we're here in Philadelphia rather than in Pittsburgh is because this community stood up for its values. All right. Now I just have to change the slides, though. let's see. Is that, how do we change the slides here? Just change this, no, that's went too far. There we go. All right, perfect. When I submitted this talk proposal, it was in the height of Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, which started in September 2025. As it got colder and I was well into a regular commitment to patrol for ICE outside my kids' school once or twice a week, I started to think about wintering as a metaphor for the current moment and realized how all I had learned in the last weeks was also applicable to work. At work, department heads had been told in confidence that due to declining enrollments, particularly from international students, we would have layoffs, and I knew that it would affect my department, but I wasn't allowed to say anything. I just knew I had to prepare. When it came time to start preparing for this talk, we were in the coldest winter Chicago had seen in 12 years. In fact, since the winter my oldest child was born. On one of those cold days, shortly after Renee Good was murdered in Minneapolis and just before Alex Preddy was murdered, and 6 weeks since 15% of my library staff was laid off, I was driving that oldest kid to a medical appointment. While stopped at a light, I saw a poster in a window with the PBS logo wearing sunglasses. Defunded, but not defeated, it read, and I found some tiny spark of joy and hope. It's winter, I thought, and it's hard, but there's work to be done in amongst the pain. Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May was published in 2020, and it was perhaps particularly vivid coming out the year it did as we all wintered together. I find it a text to return again and again. The book traces a hard year in May's life where everything went wrong and she felt the need to retreat. While feeling defeated everywhere, including in her plans for writing this book in the way she had meant to, she brings together a multitude of ideas from literature, scholarship, and cold weather cultures to examine her experiences and help us see the value in winter. No one wants to suffer, but suffering is inevitable. Spotting and approaching winter can help us to prepare and understand what is happening when it arrives. Wintering gives us permission to pay attention to the cycles of where we are personally, institutionally, and societally, and know when it is time to rest, when to prepare, and when to act. Wintering can be a response to a crisis, but noticing cycles of all kinds helps us match our energy and needs to the time. The biological female body cycles through months with a phase of preparation, the luteal phase, and a phase of possibility, the follicular phase. Those of us with such cycles are becoming increasingly aware of the importance of noticing where we are in this cycle and giving ourselves permission to act in accordance with our energy and needs. No matter who we are, we can develop a practice of noticing where we are. When does wintering happen? As May puts it, there are gaps in the mesh of the everyday world, and sometimes they open up and you fall through them into somewhere else. Moominland Midwinter is part of the Moomin series by Tove Jansson, published in 1957. May writes of Moomin Troll's experience of waking up too early from hibernation in a sleeping house, alone and terrified, as a way to understand the feelings of winter. He makes a journey out into the winter world, and in doing so finds a world he's never experienced before. Winter suggests being alone. And I think as library technologists, we may be on a slightly different winter schedule than our colleagues. Crises of funding and staffing require quick decisions and actions, and often require us to step in when things seem darkest for everyone else. We shine when new technology and processes are required, even though we may ourselves be struggling during that time as well. At other times, when everyone else is full of possibility and growth, it's time for us to step back, observe, and find stasis. Many plants and animals require a winter freeze for their life cycle. As May says, winter is not the death of the life cycle, but its crucible. Our work requires a pause too. A pause gives a chance for new ideas to come up and evaluate what is currently happening. Moomin Troll finds new friends out in the world who help him navigate his winter. Reaching out to community and engaging with others is the key to surviving any winter. We are all here at Code4Lib or watching online because we know we find strength in community. I want to illustrate this with my experiences doing ICE Patrol and how it helped me notice different ways technology supports community. I've learned some things about resilience and flexibility in community spaces this year doing ICE Watch. An orange whistle is our most basic form of communication technology. It helps to identify helpers in the community as well as a simple communication strategy to warn vulnerable members of the community. Community is created through a sense of belonging, and resilient systems expect difficulty and guide newer people through the initial hurdles of understanding the tools available until a point where they are able to teach others. Even people who know a lot need proper motivation. I knew, for example, that Signal was a secure messaging app, but I never really actually wanted to try to figure out how to use it. The motivation of being part of ICE patrols and being part of the community that would keep us all safer was what I needed to get on board. Technology has to make sense for the people using it. Another pivot example, my patrol group was using CryptPad for planning shift times. It's a free and secure cloud document service, but it's buggy. Open and secure doesn't mean it works well for everyone. We didn't switch to something insecure. Instead, the coordinators changed to a simple system to sign up for shifts. Thumbs up emojis on posts. Sometimes doing less is all it takes. Choosing any path creates some amount of locking in. You should know the risks you are taking, but not at the cost of not acting. When you are in a good moment, I hope for your sake you're in one right now, make sure that you understand what your most important roles are, either as a team or an individual. While we often have a giant list of systems we support or technologies we implement, we may not have a full picture of why we are doing so. Taking time to examine at a root level will help us to answer this question in a moment of crisis. How do you protect and nurture the things that no one else can do while letting go of everything else? And what is the work that gives people joy, or could it give them joy if it were possible? Here, Moomintroll is being helped by invisible shrews. We can be the invisible shrews of the library and take a lot of burden off people, but we must do so carefully. Change is scary or impossible in dark times, and people may fear a perception of irrelevance. I can think of many cases where I was told about a workflow which I knew was pure drudgery that an API could do in 5 minutes. But to introduce that idea can shut people down. Give people meaningful new tasks before you automate the more boring parts of their job so they won't even miss it. And whenever someone leaves, take a look at their weekly or daily tasks and see what requires a person to do and what a computer can do. Turn giant manual projects into a series of quiet, gentle, automated nudges and emphasize the humane. Take the time to continually review and take the time to do things right, even if it slows progress. We have a duty to share and support our communities, whatever those look like. The ants didn't share with the grasshopper, who sang all summer in the parable of the ant and the grasshopper. But May points out we all have ant years and grasshopper years. We take away the wrong lesson if we think that means we shouldn't share with the grasshopper. Good times will be followed by bad times, but we can be ready for the dark. May points out in her work the ideal of radical acceptance and total detachment to events isn't something we can live all the time. It comes in flashes and cycles. When we are in a good phase, be ready to share the wisdom that you learned from the dark times. You'll find wisdom in your winter, and once it's over, it's your responsibility to pass it on. Walk away today knowing you have the permission to rest and find ease and warmth where you can in your own winters, but also know you have strength, and one day you will be able to give back. Or if you can't, that does not diminish what you've given so far. May gives examples of eusocial creatures like bees and ants that only live inasmuch they give to the whole. They are inspiring, but May reminds us this is not how humans work. We can be down on our luck in a series of hard winters, but still have worth and dignity. Share your winters with the world and know that we're all here to receive you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great talk to end on. Hopefully spring will come soon. I will mention again the phone. I don't know if the phone has been attended to, but if the phone is still there, then that means someone does not have their phone. If you're missing a phone, check the registration desk. I think it's an iPhone, if I recall correctly. Let me just read these notes here. All right, we have just one rule in Bartertown. Break a deal, face the wheel. All right. Okay, so I have to talk about what's going on here. Last prize drawing for today's giveaway. We have materials from O'Reilly Media. I've heard of them. And Pragmatic Bookshelf also. 10 winners. I'm going to have to do this 10 times. 10 winners will be available to choose either an ebook or a physical book. And all conference attendees will receive both a 30-day trial code to O'Reilly's Learning Platform and a 40% discount code to Pragmatic Bookshelf. Winners will be contacted via Slack to coordinate the details of the prize. I spin the giveaway wheel, and there's a note that says, Dre, we need the list of winners that the wheel generates, so please pause between them so we can make notes. All right, I'm not sure how that's happening. All right. Oh, hey, Jen's back there. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to press the wheel. Who is going to face the opprobrium of winning a free prize? No, I don't want to copy the wheel. I want to press the wheel. Click to spin. Spinny, 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 spinny. I wish it spun longer. Can you set that? Annie Young! I saw you somewhere. All right. Yes, okay. We ready for the next one? All right, we're going to remove Annie Young from the list because no one can win 2 prizes. All right. Ready? Next winner. That was number 1. So this is number 2. Click, click. Winner number 2 is the man himself, Ken Rose. Woo! All right. Have you noted this, Jen? All right. Boom. Remove. There you go. All right. Can I make it spin longer? This is number 3. That is a little better. See, I don't think it makes it a full time around, and then that's going to Quinn Sluzensky. I can do this. Sluzensky. There we go. Woo! All right. Next, that was 3, right? This is remove. Thank you. Number 4. Shane Sullivan. Woohoo! Good. All right. Now number 5. I'm counting for myself, just because if I don't count, I will lose it. Number 5 is alive. Brian Zellop. Woohoo! All right, winner number 6. I want you to run longer, spin faster. No, it does not do it. It doesn't matter how much I shouted at. Natalie Kozier. All right, well, that was 6, right? Okay, so now we have 4 left. So number 7. My awesome colleague, Robin Davis. Woo! You're all my awesome colleagues, but Robin is actually in my department, so. All right, remove. That was 7. Yeah? Yes, okay. Number 8. Jianshan Yang. All right, you got that, Jen? All right, number 9. Number 9. One of the Corys, Corey Schmidt. Newcomer Corey Schmidt, right? Am I remembering that right? All right. Other Corey is not a newcomer, I know that. All right. Now, that was number 9 because we did the number 9 joke. Our last winner for this session and for Code4Lib 2026 giveaways is Big Money No Whammies, Jeff Gee. All right. So, congratulations to our winners. Thank you to our prize sponsors. Yes, all right. So now we are basically done. I got to do a lot of talking about stuff. Please don't go anywhere. We need to express gratitude for stuff and things like that, and also important logistics. Reminder, if you are not keeping your lanyards, please drop them off at the registration desk as they can be reused at future conferences. Next, note, a survey has been sent out via Slack, #Code4LibCon channel, and email to those who are registered. Please take a moment to share your feedback about this year's conference. It helps with future planning. There are post-conference workshops tomorrow. If you are registered for them, they will happen tomorrow here at the Marriott. Room details can be found on the conference website, and I think there was just an email sent out. Maybe, I'm not sure if that was sent out just to conference leaders or workshop leaders or to everyone. The community support volunteer for post-conference workshops is Anne-Marie Mesco in the morning. I'm not sure what the deal is with the afternoon. It does not say it here. But presumably, since there are afternoon workshops, there will also be an afternoon CSV. We'll figure it out, I'm sure. There is still room in most of the workshops, so please check with Kathy at the registration desk to register. So we got a lot of people to thank. Once again, our sponsors, our gold sponsor, Blacklight. Yay! Our silver sponsor, MIT Libraries, never heard of it. Our bronze sponsors, Forest Science, Clear, Index Data, Johns Hopkins University, Sheridan Libraries, Notch 8, Rockefeller Archive Center, and UCLA Libraries. Our contributing sponsor is Archive Space. Archive Space! All right, and now there's a long list of people to thank who have made this conference actually happen. We could not possibly name the names of all the people who have contributed to making this conference a event and a success. We will summarize by going through the chairs of the various committees. Website Working Group Chair was Eric Pettiplace. Budget and Sponsorship Committee Chair was the Concentra team. Thank you, Concentra. We definitely would not have had the conference this year without them. Keynote Committee Chair, Andromeda Yelton. Workshop Committee Chair, Anne-Marie Mesco. Program Committee Chair, Jessica McMillan. Scholarship Committee Chair, Michelle Speed. Community Support Volunteer Coordinators, Natasha and Caleb Durbin. T-shirt Committee Chair was nobody, but thank you. We managed to get a T-shirt even after the last minute change, so everyone who helped out with T-shirts, awesome. Social Activities Chair, Chad Biblioteki Nelson. Book Giveaway Committee Chair, Michael B. Klein. I don't know what B stands for. Accessibility Committee Chair, Kate Dybel, pronounced Dybel. Streaming Committee Chair, no official chair, but definitely streaming video could not happen with Carrie Gordon. Carrie, you're not allowed to retire. It's that simple. Thank you, Carrie Gordon. And one more big shout out to Concentra. I think they saved us from the jaws of defeat this year. So thanks once again to Kathy and Jen. I think that's everything. What's that? LPC. Anne-Marie Mesco, right? Yes. I did not write the notes. I'm not sure who must be punished for this grievous oversight. What's that? Get blame. Who left it off? Who did not do the commit? All right. I think that's everything. Thank you. It's been a great year. We made it. Go have some food. Hope to see you tomorrow at a workshop. Remember to take your stuff with you. Please clean up after yourselves and after others if others neglect to. Yes, tip your housekeepers if you have not done so yet and you have not checked out. Yeah, send a letter to someone you love. All right, have a good one.